Hello, are you Yumi's mother? I'm calling from the nursery school. Ha! What is it? I was puzzled by the sudden call from the nursery school. At first, I thought it might be some kind of prank, but then the teacher on the other end of the line spoke in a somewhat stern tone. Could you please come to pick up Yumi? The time we can keep her has already passed. I couldn't comprehend what I was hearing. I am sorry, but my daughter passed away a month ago. My name is Hazel. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a company employee. Currently, I'm dating a man named Nathan. We met at a mixer, and since we were the same age and had similar interests, we hit it off. He seemed like a typical company employee, stable, calm, and sensible. These qualities are important to me, especially since we're at an age where marriage is on the horizon. It's no longer just about appearances. Nathan is a kind person who exceeds my expectations and makes me feel at ease. On our dates, he always comes up with creative ideas, and when we spend time at his place, he prepares delicious meals with impressive skill. This eggplant dish is really good, isn't it? He said one evening, serving up a meal. It's surprisingly easy. I just make it quickly in the microwave. That's amazing. You're really good at Japanese cuisine, I replied, impressed. Yeah, actually my family runs a small restaurant. Really? This was something I learned when we first started dating. Nathan's family lives in the countryside and operates a small restaurant. He learned to cook from his father, who is a chef, and as a result, he's very skilled in the kitchen, capable of making a variety of dishes. Do you have any siblings? I asked. Yeah, I have a younger sister, he answered. Knowing that he had a sister meant he was the eldest son, which made me wonder if he might take over the family business someday. What are you thinking about doing in the future? With your job, I inquired. After a pause, he replied, after working at the company for a bit longer, I plan to return to my hometown and take over the family's small restaurant. I think I'll start with a training period. Oh, is that so? I was a bit taken aback by his plans. If we were to get married, I'd have to leave my current job and move with him. I work as a web designer, and I really enjoy my job. I hadn't considered quitting anytime soon. But at the same time, I wanted to be with Nathan. Before I knew it, I found myself discussing this dilemma with a senior colleague at work. Then why don't you try applying for remote work? She suggested. Really? The advantage of our job is that we can do it anywhere as long as we have a computer. If you manage your work properly, some companies will allow you to work from home. I'm sure your company can accommodate that too. Is that so? Hearing her words filled me with hope. This meant I could continue my current job even if I moved with Nathan. In fact, after I talked to Nathan about the future, he admitted that he had been thinking he would have to make me quit my job and take me with him if we got married, which had made things feel a bit awkward between us. I immediately asked my boss if it was possible to switch to remote work. If you meet the criteria set by the company, there should be no problem, was the response. As for the internet connection and computer, everything was falling into place. This meant that if I wanted to, I could move to Nathan's hometown right away. After confirming with my boss, I shared the news with Nathan on our next date. Really? So you mean you can continue your current job while living in my hometown? He asked, a mixture of surprise and relief on his face. Yes, that's possible, I replied with a smile. That's great. He looked genuinely relieved, and seeing his expression made me feel the same way. It didn't take long after that for us to decide to get married. Hazel, if you don't mind, would you marry me and move to my hometown? Nathan asked one evening, his voice filled with sincerity. Yes, I'd love to, I said without hesitation. And so, we decided to tie the knot. When I told my parents about the move, they seemed a bit sad but ultimately supported me, sending me off with the words, be happy. Nathan and I got married and started our life together. He began working at his family's small restaurant under his father's guidance. Since the restaurant was next to his parents' house, we initially lived with them. At the suggestion of my in-laws, who wanted Nathan to focus on learning the business without worrying about household chores, they proposed that we stay with them to lighten our load. However, I would later realize that this decision was a mistake. Living with my in-laws turned out to be more challenging than I had anticipated. Hazel, how long do you intend to stay holed up in your room? My mother-in-law, Susan, said one day, knocking on the door forcefully. I'm working, Susan. I'm actually working right now, I explained. Working? You're always in your room. What kind of work are you doing? Are you trying to deceive me with that excuse? she retorted, her tone filled with suspicion. I'll never accept it, my mother-in-law declared. But I really am working, I insisted. Don't lie. You're just playing around, drawing pictures on that computer, aren't you? She snapped, glancing at my screen. This is called web design. It's my job, I explained, trying to remain patient. I won't be fooled. It's shameful for an adult to be wasting time drawing pictures, she retorted. My mother-in-law likely held old-fashioned views and didn't seem to grasp the concept of working from home. To her, I wasn't really working. I was just cooped up at home, neglecting household chores. I never thought I'd have such a lazy daughter-in-law. Nathan is working hard to become first class, and here you are, playing around like a parasite. Try to be more useful, she criticized almost daily, making it increasingly difficult for me to concentrate on my work. Desperate to change the situation, I decided to talk to my husband about it. Oh, my mom's getting in the way of your work? Nathan asked when I brought it up. Yes, it's like she doesn't understand I'm working from home. She thinks I'm just goofing off, I explained. I see. My mom has old-fashioned ideas, so it might be inevitable. I'll talk to her, he assured me. Nathan's support gave me some relief, but my mother-in-law was more stubborn than I had anticipated. How did you convince Nathan? Why do I have to be scolded? She fumed. It's clear you're just playing around. That's not it. I've been trying to explain. I protested, but our clashes only grew more frequent. Each time she made unreasonable remarks, I turned to Nathan for help. But over time, he seemed less willing to mediate. This is a problem between the two of you. Solve it yourselves, he said one day. Just as I was beginning to feel I couldn't take it anymore, something unexpected happened. Feeling unwell, I went to the hospital, only to be shocked by the news. I was pregnant. My mother-in-law had often pressured me to provide a successor, but I never imagined getting pregnant at such a tumultuous time. I immediately informed my husband and in-laws about the pregnancy. The news took everyone by surprise, but my mother-in-law was especially stunned. Well done, she said, clearly delighted. Both my husband and father-in-law were happy too, but my mother-in-law's joy was the most apparent. Since then, she had become much kinder to me. Hazel, how are you feeling? I'll handle the household chores so you don't overdo it, she offered. Her sudden change in attitude was a relief. The scolding and bullying that had once been a daily occurrence stopped, and instead, she became supportive and caring about my health. It was comforting to have the previously confrontational mother-in-law offer me support during this challenging time. Despite the initial strain on my relationship with my husband, things began to improve, and our bond grew stronger. I settled into a stable condition as I prepared for childbirth. However, a new issue emerged during this time. Sometime after the news of my pregnancy, my mother-in-law asked, "By the way, can you tell the baby's gender yet?" "Yes, it's a girl," I replied honestly. Her face fell with disappointment. A girl? It should have been a boy. Our restaurant has always been passed down to males. Women inheriting such businesses is unheard of. I tried to reason with her. That's unacceptable. Nowadays, women can inherit businesses too. Her response was harsh. Don't try to justify yourself with your strange values. You're clearly not suited for this. Although my father-in-law and husband were slightly disappointed that the baby wasn't a boy, they weren't as upset as my mother-in-law. However, her disapproval quickly turned into hostility. Having no heir means you're worthless. How long are you going to stay in bed? Get up and do some housework, she demanded. I'm sorry, but I've been really sick with morning sickness, I explained. Don't be so spoiled. Pregnancy is not an illness. Get moving, she shouted as she came to wake me. Facing both poor health and harsh treatment, I decided to go against my in-laws' wishes and return to my parents' house for the birth. Spending time at my parents' home felt like a long-awaited relief. While I found great relief both mentally and physically during my time at my parents' home, it was clear that my stay with my in-laws had been a significant source of stress. After some time at my parents' place, my daughter was finally born. My husband and I had chosen the name Yi for her, and she was absolutely adorable. I made a firm promise to protect her with all my heart. Perhaps because the hospital where I gave birth was in my hometown, none of my in-laws visited. Not even once. I had hoped my husband would come, but he couldn't make it due to the restaurant's demands. After resting and regaining my health, I decided to return to my in-laws' home, but I quickly regretted it. My mother-in-law greeted me with an angry expression. You've taken your sweet time bringing back my grandchild. Why the delay? I'm sorry, I needed some rest, I explained. Rest? We've been incredibly busy. What do you mean by busy? She retorted. The restaurant was featured in magazines and on TV, and we've been fully booked every day. I even had to help out there, I said. I see. That's why I need you to come to the restaurant immediately, my mother-in-law demanded. Feeling overwhelmed, I saw no other option. My husband also urged me to help, explaining that the restaurant was in trouble. Reluctantly, I put my daughter in daycare and began assisting at my in-laws' restaurant. The real challenge started then. I had to work at the restaurant every day, manage all the household chores, and care for my child. My health was deteriorating, and on top of that, I was subjected to constant verbal abuse from my mother-in-law, which pushed me to my mental limits. Amidst all this, one day, I suddenly collapsed and was diagnosed with a stress-induced gastric ulcer. After regaining consciousness, I explained my situation to the doctor, who advised that I would need a longer hospital stay than usual. When I informed my mother-in-law, her response was devoid of concern. "What a troubled woman," she said dismissively over the phone. Meanwhile, my husband apologized, saying, "I'm sorry for pushing you too hard." But it felt too little, too late. I couldn't shake the feeling that he too was responsible for letting things spiral so badly. During my hospital stay, Rose, who worked at a small restaurant, came to my aid. "I'll take care of you," she said. "I'll handle the drop-offs and pickups for your daughter." "Thank you so much," I said, deeply relieved. Rose's help with daycare was a lifeline, allowing me to focus on my recovery with some peace of mind. However, a few weeks into my hospitalization, I received a frantic call from my husband. "Hazel, please calm down and listen. Yumi, she's died. She was caught in a big fire, and her body couldn't be saved." The words struck me like a blow, and I could barely process the news. "I'm sorry, but I'm also suffering," he said. The shocking news left me deeply unsettled. When I returned to my in-laws' home after being discharged, I was met with the grim sight of an urn containing my daughter's ashes. Overwhelmed with grief, I was further stunned by my husband's next statement. "I'm giving you this urn and asking for a divorce. I can't continue our marriage with the loss of our daughter and the ongoing issues with my mother. I understand if you're fed up with the situation." "I am," I said. "I'm done with your mother's bullying and your inability to protect me. I'll leave." Determined to move on, I decided to leave my in-laws' home and pursue a divorce. When I returned to my parents' house, their warm welcome provided a much-needed source of comfort in the depths of my sorrow. When I explained my situation to my company, where I had been taking time off, they were understanding and allowed me to extend my leave. After a month of rest, I received an unexpected phone call. "Hello, is this Yumi's mother? This is a staff member from the nursery. Why are you calling?" I was initially puzzled and thought it might be a joke. But the voice on the other end was stern. "Could you please come and pick up Yumi? It's past the time we can keep her." Confused, I replied, "I'm sorry, but my daughter passed away a month ago." The teacher's tone shifted to anger. "Why would you say such a thing? It's unthinkable to neglect your own child. Please come quickly." Overwhelmed by their reaction, I rushed to the nursery. To my shock, I found Yumi there, alive and laughing joyously. The relief of seeing her safe was immense. A teacher approached me, clearly having realized the misunderstanding. "We were told by your mother-in-law that you were too busy to pick up Yumi, so she's been bringing her here daily." Hearing that my mother-in-law had falsely claimed Yumi was in my care while she was actually alive at the nursery filled me with rage. My contact information was listed as the emergency contact, which is why the nursery had called me. My husband and father-in-law had deceived me, and I was furious. Taking Yumi, I returned to my parents' home. As I settled in, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law. "Why did you take Yumi back without permission?" she yelled. I retorted, "Why did you lie about Yumi's death? I found out she was alive and left at the nursery. If you all want to lie to make things easier for yourselves, that ends now. I will raise my daughter myself. Do as you like, but don't contact me again." My mother-in-law was silent and then hung up. Fueled by anger, I resolved to uncover the full truth about the situation. I went to my in-laws' house armed with important documents. "What are you doing here?" my mother-in-law asked, visibly surprised. That day, the restaurant was closed and the whole family was at home, including another key person. "I've come to discuss the affair between Nathan and Rose," I said. The mention of the affair visibly shook my in-laws. "Affair? What are you talking about?" my ex-husband asked, his face paling. I presented documents proving that Rose was pregnant and that Nathan was the father. According to these, Rose was pregnant around the time I gave birth. While I was in the dark, you two were involved in an affair that led to this pregnancy. To cover it up, you lied to me about Yumi's death. Their faces turned even whiter as they absorbed my words. I'm relieved that Yumi is safe, but I will be demanding compensation for my mental distress and child support, I declared. My ex-husband began to apologize profusely. I'm truly sorry. It was wrong. This was all my mother's idea, and I was against it. We intended to put Yumi in a child welfare institution. Child welfare institution? What are you talking about? I demanded. He revealed a shocking truth. The plan had been to fake Yumi's death and place her in a child welfare institution to avoid paying compensation and child support. My anger reached its peak. I'm truly sorry. Please, I beg you to overlook the compensation and child support, he pleaded. There's no way I can forgive that. I'm going to sue you. Be prepared, I replied, and left the house. Following these events, I demanded compensation from Nathan and Rose and sought child support from my ex-husband. I also detailed the situation to neighbors, regular customers of the restaurant, and mothers from the nursery school. The scandal spread quickly, tarnishing my in-laws' reputation. As word spread on social media and even new customers who had heard about the restaurant through magazines stopped coming, the family's small restaurant was forced to close within a year. It felt like just deserts for their despicable actions. Meanwhile, I continued working from home at my parents' house, focusing on raising my daughter. She's growing up well, and both my parents and I are delighted to see her thrive. I plan to keep working hard for her future.